Idioms. Language within language. An idiom is a non-literal kind of figure of speech, a particular phrasing whose meaning is different from the original intended construct. So, for instance, describing somebody who's taking an agonizingly long time to do something, you might say, he's slower than the molasses in January. Of course, the person isn't literally that slow. I'm not sure that's even possible, but if one imagines somebody moving at the flowing speed of the already rich viscosity of molasses, coupled with the added low molecular movement brought on by freezing temperatures in the dead of winter, well, you get the idea. Idioms, for their part, make up a very intricate and in-depth portion of language, and I really don't think a 4-hour lecture on the topic is what we're looking for here. So instead, let's specifically dig into idioms as used in conversation. A quick-fire exposé to help sharpen the spikes of this part of your communication game. In conversation, idioms show up without us even noticing. They are littered throughout our speech, more or less at all times. But intently, they can be used to quickly give a basic comparative context to describe something. We'll be talking about the weather, and then somebody might pipe up with something familiar from the repertoire like, "It's hotter than hell outside." Well, you've heard that one many times, I'm sure. Hell, in its description, is of course intended to be an immolating inferno without end, not a tepid 30 degrees centigrade, but again, when we hear it, we get it. We get that it's very hot out. Idioms can also be a source for humor. When one branches out and away from those that are typically commonly used, and offers something less familiar, it's good for a bit of a chuckle, or at least to keep things light. So if we take that same conversation about the weather, and one wanted to humorously describe the heat level, they might say, "It's hotter than a freaking tamale out here." An unexpected but understandable comparison to the Mexican street food, or the cinnamon jelly candy. And again, it's not about accuracy, it's about the context and fun of the chosen subject. Literally speaking, a tamale will cool down for every second it sits on your plate, and there is absolutely no radiant heat or fire hazard risks with respect to cinnamon. You can leave both of those things next to a stack of papers and nothing will happen. But when somebody uses the tamale idiom, we get it. We enjoy it. Lastly, and this is where things really kick into high gear, as it were, is when we drum up new idioms of our own. An entire world of situations, colloquialisms, adjectives, verbs, and nouns are at our fingertips to get creative and invent our own personal factory of snappy turn of phrases. So, for continuity's sake, let's stick with the advent of hot weather for this next example. You could say, "It's hotter than a supermodel in a forest fire." Now there I've used a bit of wordplay, since hot can be a homonym to describe somebody who is physically attractive, teamed up with the blazing and destructive forest fire. Now I'm fully aware that any humor found in that is instantly spoiled by my explanation. I just want to illustrate the point that creating your own idioms is a great opportunity to insert your own bit of creativity and cleverness into your everyday chat. Though, do be careful with that. You don't want to get too cute. For one thing, it takes a bit of practice to get really good at it and be able to create them on the fly, as opposed to building up your own little arsenal to have at the ready. And you don't want things to get wrong, or you don't want things to get obscure, because you might confuse people. You might end up discussing the idiom itself and divert away from what you were initially talking about. It's no good if it all flies over people's heads. I mean, they might understand you through context alone, but that's not what we're going for. I'll put it to you this way. There's nothing worse than turning an attentive audience into an orchestra of crickets. You know what I'm saying, right?